Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on our Health Matters program, where we discuss health matters, of course, because your health matters. I am your host, Troy Gill, and today we are speaking with mental health and wellness advocate, who is also a suicide attempt survivor, Dexter Mitchell, and psychiatrist and psychotherapist attached to Fit for Life Medical Services, Dr. Dirk Burkhardt, on World Suicide Day, recognized on September 10th. This Health Matters program is being done in collaboration with GrenCHAP. Health matters because your health matters. We'll be right back. All right, viewers, welcome back to our Health Matters program, where we discuss health matters, of course, because your health matters. I am your host, Troy Gill, and today we are going to be speaking on Suicide Prevention Day, which is recognized on September 10th, and we are going to be speaking with mental health and wellness advocate, Mr. Dexter Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Troy. I'm elated, delighted to be here. Always relish the opportunity to speak to a topic that I think is very, very important, and especially that we're recognizing suicide prevention this week and on the 10th of September. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I listened to you sharing on another program, and you mentioned that this is something that should be ongoing, not just when the day arrives, yes, but it's about creating that kind of awareness year round, and what do you think about that? And I'm doing this program, and I've done other programs, and actually it has been 13 years since my attempt. Right.
So my attempt at suicide, and I'm becoming more of an advocate, more active in sharing my story and using my experience to be able to help others. And I think, like I said, it should not just be the week or the day,
right,
but it should be a continuous process, because we all have to deal with issues on an everyday basis. So there are people who are suffering, people who are hurting. We cannot wait on a special occasion or when there is the sensationalism of a spate of suicides, right, to address the issue. I think there are people who are in need of counseling, who are in need of help, who are in need of a listening ear. So I am going to do my part, and I urge everyone else to, beyond the 10th of September, use that platform to create that awareness.
Right. And your experience, your journey is definitely an inspiration and motivation to others. And I'm sure that over that 13 years, you would have gained so much experience in terms of being able to help others and inspire others and even work with people who may have suicidal ideations and so forth. So we want to start with that. Can you share with us your personal journey as it relates to coping with mental health issues and how it has helped your perspective on life, and some of the strategies that you would have employed even then and now to help you find hope and to recover and to exemplify the kind of traits that shows that somebody is coping with their mental health?
Very good question, and over the last 13 years, it's been an incredible journey. I think it has been the best part of my life, and I want to sound a caution and a word of encouragement to people who are not in a good place right now. You're thinking you're at your darkest hour, you're thinking of doing something to yourself. I was at that point. I did it to myself, and I've been more successful post-suicide than I was prior to the attempt, which speaks to going beyond the dark clouds and seeing the silver lining. I did not know there was a silver lining.
Okay.
Thank God I was saved by a miracle, as it were, and we'll get into that story later. But the coping mechanisms, you have to be able to establish balance in life. My life was focused on two extremes: one, a personal relationship, one, my professional relationships. And there was no balance, there was no in between, there was no time to myself. So immediately following the attempt, I had to readjust my life, identify the people who mattered to me, figure out who did not belong in my circle, who belonged in my circle, and get closer to them. I also had to figure out self-time. So one of the things one practical thing I did was dedicate Sundays to myself. So on Sundays, I would take part in no professional activity, unless there was an emergency. But I would dedicate Sundays to myself. I learned to cook a bit more, so I would cook on Sundays, relax, look at sports, and enjoy myself, probably go to the beach very early in the morning and so on. Another coping mechanism was exercise. I mean, obviously, growing up in the country, you always running around, taking part in school sports and so on. So I went back, and you'd go to the gym off and on, you'd start and stop. But I rededicated myself to my fitness, ensure that I lost weight and maintain that. And what it does for you, the feeling, when you go out there and you exercise and you get a sweat, join some groups, we do some long walks once a month, So that has worked also. And just find the things that you enjoy doing. Identify people you can speak to, and this one is very important. Whatever else you are going to be told about how you could cope, the most important thing is to be able to have people that you can speak with. And I've found that sometimes you just need an outlet. You need to have a conversation with somebody, and you might not be speaking about the topic at hand. You might not be exactly speaking about how you feel. You could have a discussion about basketball, but it helps you in the moment. Take that pressure down, take that intensity down, and then you can go past whatever it is that intensity that was creating the disturbance.
Wow. Something you said, and I think this is something that men should really take a page from your book, in terms of having a kind of a support system.
Yes.
Having people that you can tap into,
Yep.
right, whenever the need arises. I think that is so critical. And listen to your story. To me, it's all about second chances as well. Now you have a second chance to do things right.
And redemption.
Yes. Right. Exactly. And that's to me, that is very inspiring. And so, can I share with us how important it is to have that kind of a support system that you need, especially as a man?
It's very important. Growing up in a Caribbean society, men are supposed to be men. We're not supposed to show emotions. We're not supposed to cry. We're not supposed to have emotional problems. We get a cut and it's supposed to heal, and but when we hurt inside, we keep it to ourselves, and you find that in most instances a larger percentage of the suicides in the Caribbean are men, just because we bottle up stuff so much, and then it manifests itself in this act at the end of your life. But I think it is important to find that support group, that men have that conversation. If you're having spousal issues, that you find somebody you can speak to, not necessarily another female, but a man who could understand, who might be going through the same thing.
Right.
If you're having issues at work, whatever the personal problem is, having that support group, having another man that you can speak with. And like I said, the conversations are very important. I have a younger sister who is completing a PhD in clinical psychology in North Carolina, in the United States. And in her working experience, the West Indians and the Caribbean people are the toughest to open up, to talk. We don't like to talk about those issues. We talk about everything else, carnival, cricket, soccer, but we don't talk about the emotional issues. And even as kids, we are not conditioned to open up. If something happens, we are made to feel ashamed. If there was some abuse or something, we should not speak about it, because as kids it was our fault. So those things that we have to change, where we get out of it, and as men could start that conversation with each other, and as the head of the household, then it can trickle down into the household, into the homes, where you come home and you ask the tough questions of your spouse, your girlfriend, your child's mother, whatever it might be, and then of your kids. And then that could generate a whole genesis of a different approach to mental well-being, to mental health, to the challenges that we have to face on a daily basis.
Wow, that is deep. And I really hope that the men who are listening will take a page from your book.
I hope so too.
Yeah. And that I also wanted to make reference to something that you said in terms of dropping off the baggage, because you said that you had to release some friends, release some habits and some practices and so forth, in order for you to be able to move along on that path of healing and redemption and so forth. How important is that as well?
No, that is very, very important. When you look back, and when I had 11 days after my attempt, I was hospitalized for 11 days, so I had sufficient time to reflect to what brought me to the stage. Why did I do what I did? And thereafter, I had probably another month where I was inactive. We were just home and healing physically, healing mentally. So I had a sufficient time to go through all the different pages, all the things that led up to that point, the weeks leading up to it and so on. I also had the opportunity to see how people reacted to me.
Okay. And
I've made it very, very clear that during that stage, when I could have died, and in effect, I was dead for 14 hours because I was unconscious. And during that time, if you did not treat me well, it means you don't belong in my life, because this is a life and death situation. That means you don't care about my life, you don't care about my existence. And if you treated me well, then I am your friend, I'm indebted to you forever. Not that people expect that, but that is how I feel about the situation. So I had some time to kind of reflect, look at how people were reacting to my suicide attempt. And you had people who I thought were friends saying, that man tried to kill himself, I don't want nothing to do with him.
Right.
All right, cool. So you just made that decision easier for me, And there were some other actions where people did not say, but based on the inaction, I was able to make a determination. These people did not belong in my corner. And it was the same thing with the people who helped, the people who were there. When, by the actions, you know that these people are dedicated to you, these people care about you. They might not have shown it before, but now you are seeing it. So yeah, that's a conversation you need to have with yourself. There are some friendships that are going to get cut off. Some people are going to get hurt. It's going to hurt you. People that you think that, were there for you and you like being around and you love hanging around with and so on. You have to cut them off. But that is a decision that you have to make for your own survival, for your own sanity. That you cannot continue to have those people in your life. That is continually going to create emotional damage and emotional baggage. And once that happens, you feel much lighter. You know that the person you're talking to on the phone is somebody you can trust. You know that when you pick up the phone and you tell somebody, I'm not feeling good right now, or I need help in making this decision, you know that the answer is, or the response is coming from a genuine place. You never want to be in a position, and especially me coming out of what I came out of, where you have to doubt and question whether or not that person is genuine, or whether or not they're going to hold on to your secret. So you have to clear that pattern. Once you do that, everything else takes care of itself.
Wow, interesting. And we're gonna get into a little more. I want to ask you though, are you willing to share with us a little bit about details of that dark period?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No. So before we even go further, most people know your story, but for somebody who is listening and probably don't know your story,
I'm comfortable, and I think that was one of even this is part of the continuous healing process. And that was one of the things that I had to deal with. That I did it, and I have to live with it. So I'll tell you this, every few weeks I would relive every single minute, every single second, because I do not want to forget that experience. I do not want to forget what I've been through. And in fact, I am starting now to grapple with the idea of making some notes, doing them more and more. That probably might lead to a book or something. So that even when I'm not...
I like that.
when I don't have the public forums, people can pick up something and read and speak to the experience. And sometimes somebody might need something at a particular point. So if they have something to read as opposed to waiting for me to do an interview and so on. Right. 2010, I was the CEO of the GrenCHAP Cultural Foundation. I'm out there, I'm a public figure. Things are going, swimmingly well. But there were things that were not right. Like I said, my personal life was not okay. Professionally, the people I trusted and were working together were doing things to undermine me. And if you remember 2010 was a very good year for Carnival. I worked extremely hard. That was the year Otis won both the Soca Monarch and the road match with Tornado. So, we were having a good time.
All right.
But all was not well, in camp, and coming out of the Carnival season, a lot of things were being said about me internally. And I don't think the personal relationship did not provide the support that I was looking for.
Okay.
And there was some kind of crossover, some information being shared and so on. So it just got to the point in October, on the 23rd of October, that I couldn't take anymore. I did not have anybody to turn to. At that time, I had not developed those relationships, where I could turn to somebody and have that conversation. So on the 23rd of October, it was a Saturday. When I woke, I just knew that was going to be my last day or not. I did not want to continue that struggle and that battle. So I had the attempt on the Saturday night. And what I did, like I said, for people who know me, I'm very meticulous in organizing events and very structured and so on. So I organize it in a way so that when I'm formed, I will be formed in a decent state. So I sent a text just after doing everything and just going to lie down to die. I actually sent a text, and the person I sent text to, I don't think that they would have taken it seriously. They probably would have waited 24 hours, and when they didn't hear back from me, then I alerted the authorities and so on. But they responded, a couple of hours thereafter, and so I alerted somebody else, and that person alerted the police. And thank God that happened. I was discovered in a state of unconsciousness. Of course, health-wise distressed, rushed to the hospital. My stomach was pumped. And the doctor did tell me after that I was warded with the expectation that I was going to die. He did not expect me to recover. Thank God, God stepped in, performed his miracle, and I was able to. But for 14 hours, I was out. And for at least 4 days, I was not out of the woods, that I could have died over those 4 days. And then that process of healing started. Yeah, and like I said, I had to, well, I had the support. My mom came in from the States, my sister came in. So I had the support of family and close friends. People responded. Some people I did not expect to responded very nicely, and that kind of gave you the impetus, knowing that people care that the way they did, to not just survive, but to thrive, to be a better version of yourself. And I think that was the motivation. The late Sir Paul Scone, who is related to my family, I remember him coming into the hospital and saying, "Oh, Dexter, come on, you can't do this," And one of the things that and I have not mentioned it before, and thought just came to mind. One of the things that he said to me, because once I started to heal, there was conversations about whether I should stay in Grenada and how I, as a public figure, deal with the stigma and the stain, how people would respond to me, or would people want to associate with me, and so on. So there was a lot of talk about me migrating, going either to England, Canada, back to the US, Trinidad. And I remember having the discussion with Sir Paul, and he said to me, "Dexter, this is mental. You cannot run away from yourself. Wherever you go, you still have to deal with you."
Right.
And I think that is what that is what started that process, that I have to deal with me. I know it was going to be a tough task, reassuring people that I'm okay, gaining the confidence of people professionally around me and so on. But based on what Sir Paul told me, it's like I did not have a choice. I mean, why would I go somewhere else and I still have to grapple with me, as opposed to staying here and facing up to it. So yeah, so that was the experience. Like I said, I had very good support. And then I had to make some decisions, some very tough decisions. There were some people I had to let go, and some people I had to draw closer to, and said, I have to do what I have to do for me. And like I said, that process has led to a more professional success for me. I mean, the Grenada Invitational, managing artists, putting on events, and so on. And I think when you've had those experiences and you look back at your shortcomings and the chances you don't give yourself, it's kind of like, okay, I'm on my dying bed, and you start let me put it this way: over the 11 days, there were also the thoughts of the regrets, things I did not do, things I could have done, why I did not push more, and I made the decision that I am not going to not stop trying. I'm going to work different professionally, but I'm going to work as hard as I've ever worked, and it has paid off.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a really deep story. And at what point did you acknowledge what you did? How long after the incident? And when you decided that, hey, you know what, I need to acknowledge this is now a part of me, and now it's time for me to make that turnaround.
That's a very good question. It probably took about a year, because you're still trying to figure out, although I had made the decision, the 11 days in the hospital, but once you came out of that space, grappling with how people reacted to you and so on, the stigma and the stain and whatever, I had somebody advised me maybe I needed to do a press conference and explain myself and so on. People were still making comments. I remember coming out of the bank one day and this lady was like, all of these murderers and, and things like that. So it probably took me about a year. I remember calling a friend of mine who was working on another TV station, another local TV station. And I said to him, I want to tell my story. And it's kind of funny. Like, I thought he was going to digest, that for a while and say, okay, how do we plan that? And, it'd probably take about 2 weeks. And I remember calling him Friday and he said, yeah, we could come to your house and do it Saturday morning. Okay. Well, you know what? That's a sign that let's just get it over and done with. And I think once I told the story, it aired, I think it was a Wednesday night or Tuesday night. And immediately, Troy, the difference was immediate. I mean, the very next day I went out and people were reacting to me differently. They heard from me.
Empathy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they heard from me about all the rumors and why and the stigma and so on. And I think sharing has made a difference. And now, 13 years later, the sharing is in a different sphere where you're actually helping people. I get so many friend requests once I do an interview, so many calls, so many outreach for assistance and to talk to people and so on. And I relish it. I think my experience, what I've been through, should not be wasted, and I've had people reach out to me saying that the insight, so when somebody commits suicide, the friends, the family, the close circle, you feel guilty because you feel that you let the person down, you did not listen to them, or they did not have enough trust and confidence in you to share with you.
It's like they feel betrayed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So having somebody like me who's almost lost his life can explain to people what you're going through, because there's no blame. I did not blame anybody. It wasn't anybody's fault. I should have created a more balance in my life, and I think generally when people are going through that stage, they are not blaming anybody, and we're not trying to hurt ourselves. We are trying to end the pain, and there's a pain, a confusion that happens mentally. It's not a physical pain, and that's why I refer to it as a silent killer, because you cannot look at somebody and say, oh, that person is having suicidal thoughts, that person wants to end it all. And even you as a person going through it, you don't understand what is going on with you until, you know, that moment when it clicks. Like I said, mine was the Saturday morning of October 23rd, 2010. It's just like, this is it. I'm not going to do this anymore, you know. So me being able to share now and say to people, this is what I was going through, these are the signs that you look for, these are the conversations you should have. I think I want to continue to do that. You cannot ask somebody who's going through stress what's wrong. What is stressing you? More than likely they'll tell you I'm okay. The easy answer is, nah, I'm good, man, everything is okay. You know, you have to start a different conversation and allow them to open up.
And my next question is, how long before the incident were you entertaining the thought of suicide?
Not very long, you know. I mean, I knew I was stressed. So again, full disclosure, my father died by suicide in 1982. And had you know, 1982 compared to 2010, a completely different time. So I was not living with him at the time. I was in another village. So I actually was informed, and I got to his house and I was able to see him, you know. He hung himself, so I was able to see him on the rope and so on, which was traumatic at the time. I was only 12 years old. There was no counseling and so on. So, yeah, that... no, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. So the question was, how long before the incident were you?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. And so I brought up my father to make the point that I was always aware that this is not a family trait or a family trend. So I'm never going to do that. This is never going to happen to me. So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm a public figure. Things are going well. Carnival is successful. So I have no reason to until this stuff started happening. And I'm grappling with it and trying to figure out, okay, what is it I am doing wrong? Why are these people doing this to me? Why are they behaving the way they are? And you're trying to find a way out. You're trying to find solutions, you know, people calling you and telling you things that you're not aware of and so on. And you're trying to you know, speak to different people to find a way out. And you are not. And like I said, I did not want to die. Obviously, I love life. I cherish, you know, this precious life that God has given me, you know, but I just got tired that morning. There was nowhere else to turn, and I, you know, just had enough of it. And I was like, you know what, the best escape route is to end it all. Maybe that's what everybody wants. They do not want me around, so let me go that route, you know. But it was not a continuous thought that, I think if I was having those thoughts, then probably I would have reached out, you know, to a professional, or reached out to a close family member who could understand and so on. But it just, like I said, it was just a snap and it happened. Not saying that other people who've attempted or committed suicide do not have lengthy periods of deliberation.
Right.
But it was
not
not
so. Thinking about it and entertaining the thought and so on.
Yeah, but it was not that in my case.
Okay. Did you seek professional help?
Yeah, thereafter. Okay. Well, when it again, and because I was able to make the adjustments, so even the things that were done to me professionally post attempt was not very professional. So I was told that in order for me to go back to work, I needed to have a psychiatric evaluation, which was done. They were satisfied that I'm okay, I could go back to work. But the people who had to say yes did not agree. Physically, the doctor said yes, I was ready to go back to work. But like I said, what led up to the attempt kind of continued thereafter. Like I was not wanted around in that environment anymore, which was okay. It was not because I was not doing my work. It was just that there were personal things. People did not agree with my style of doing things. Okay. People did not like the fact that I was successful doing it my way, you know. So outside of that, I started to see somebody locally, professionally, and I had issues of confidentiality because she did mention other people to me, so that scared me. Like, you know, my case is more sensational than that person. Obviously, you might share it. So I was recommended to somebody at SGU, and I think she made a huge difference.
Okay.
She was American who did not know who I was or whatever, you know. So 3 months of that did wonders for me. And subsequent to that, I still do now and then see a counselor when I think it is necessary. Not because I'm at any risk or anything like that, but I think people, if you look at people internationally or globally who are extremely successful, they do have counselors, they do have the therapists that they speak to, and I think at some point we all need, you know, to have a conversation with somebody. So even if you cannot afford to go to a professional once a week or twice every month or something like that, if you have a family member or a friend, or
it could be your pastor, or
exactly that you can have those conversations with. But the professional help, the professional sessions made a huge difference. Again, it gives you insight into who you are, things that you did not know about yourself. Speaking to a professional about it, you know, even speaking to my sister, like I said, who is almost completing her PhD, and the insight she has, I mean, with the professional training, you could tell her something and she immediately identifies and could provide a solution. Yeah, so the professional help makes a difference, and I would encourage anybody who's in that position and wants to, not because you're sick or not because something is wrong with you mentally, but just to have that conversation.
Just do a check-in now and again. It's like just like when you do a blood pressure check, you do a check for diabetes, and so on. You do a mental health
check
up as well. I think that is important. And the reason why I ask this is because men tend to be a bit hesitant seeking out somebody in that profession, or seeking help.
No, I think we need to get rid of those stigmas that men are not supposed to do this and men are not supposed to do that. If we want to continue to be, I believe in gender equality, but if we want to continue to function as men, I think we have to step up, and that is one of the conditions. We also do it physically. We don't go to the medical doctors until it is almost too late, you know. And I think in order to maintain your function as men, I think you have to be mentally sound. If you're not, then it's going to create havoc, and we see a lot of broken homes, especially within West Indian society, a lot of single mothers and so on, because men are not coping very well, you know. So I think that is something I would definitely encourage, and speak to the men out there that you don't have to be a man, you know.
Right.
Being a man means that you can cry also. That means that you can speak to somebody. It means that you can open up and let people know that things are not okay. You know?
I want to ask this question. All right, so let me stick to the script. All right. So the topic, the theme for this year.
Yes.
Actually, right. So the theme for this year, it says creating hope through action, right? And looking back at yourself now, or somebody who may be in a similar situation, what advice would you give to that person, or what would you have done differently or recommended for somebody who is experiencing a similar situation like yourself?
Well, first of all, I must say I really like the theme, and it kind of fits into my venture into advocacy for mental health and well-being. Action. It has to be action. And we cannot keep talking around the subject, or keep talking around the issues, and there is not any action taking place. And me being able to function now and getting back my life, it was because of action. Me having to make some decisions, me taking certain decisions about my life and things that I want to do. If there is a mental health issue, if you are disturbed, if you're not comfortable at work, if your marriage is falling apart, it is not going to fix itself. You have to take some action. So, you know, for a marriage, for example, it's either separation or go to a marriage counselor, you know, and try to work it out. At work, either you find a next job or you confront what the issues are. So action, I firmly believe in action, and also you taking care of yourself. You feel good when you look good. So if it means exercising, doing things that you enjoy, too often we put off the things that we enjoy doing for something else, and find that leads to some kind of stress or distress. So for example, when you meet somebody new, you're dating and you meet somebody new, and some of the things you enjoy doing, you put it off to share the companionship or to enjoy what that person enjoys, and you find you start losing yourself, and the situation becomes stressful. So just sticking to you, appreciating you for who you are. We are not perfect, none of us are, But what I found, Troy, is that everybody does what they like doing and what is in the best interest. So putting off you to accommodate any other situation, whether it's work or a companion or anything like that, is going to do some damage and it's going to cause some stress. So finding those coping mechanisms also. Like I said, for me, exercise, I love driving out to the country, just hanging out by the street, getting some barbecue, having a drink and so on. Those things work well for me. So finding that item that takes you down, whatever the stress is, whatever is causing anxiety, whatever is causing a rush of blood, find that thing that takes you down. It might be looking at a movie, it might be reading a book, it might be calling up somebody and having a conversation, but it might be a walk on the beach, going for a swim, but find that one thing that takes you down and find balance in life. Too many of us, we go all out, and I was like that. It's all walk to get the end result, and you have to have that balance. You have to be able to. There has to be a cutoff point. There has to be a point where you say, you know what, nah, I can't continue like this. I need to do something to enjoy myself. Enjoy the foods that you like. Stop putting it off. Thinking you need to save up a certain amount to live a certain lifestyle or to eat something. No, you have to live in the moment. You have to enjoy it right now. So the action, and as individuals, it starts with us. Nobody's going to do it for us. We have to, as individuals, take action to ensure that we change the environment around us to make it better for ourselves, and then we can be better for those around us.
Wow. Yep. And what do you think about, well, I'm assuming that there may be support networks here locally. What are your thoughts on that, on having that sort of a support network, a support group that survivors can tap into and communicate with each other and so forth?
Well, that is just kind of coming together. And more so to assist. I think individually, and people who I've met who've been in a similar situation, I think individually we're obviously in much better places right now. I think what we want to do is to be able to assist, to be able to reach out to people, and not, you don't have to be on the brink of suicide or trying to do something drastic to get help, but just people who are having challenges on a day-by-day basis. I mean, school just opened yesterday. Think about that kid who's going to a new school year, a new term, a new form, a new class for the first time. Think of that anxiety. So being able to have those conversations, to say to people, yeah, the nervousness, the butterflies you're feeling in your stomach, that is okay, you eventually will get over it. That stressful situation that you're going through right now, be it financial, be it spousal, whatever it is, be it work-related, it is not permanent. This is a temporary situation, and you can put things in place to be able to get over it, Yeah, and you have to be strong mentally. If you're not strong mentally, then nothing is going to change. You have to effect that change. You have to make that change. So, and I like the fact that the ministry and Kevin Frederick is doing a wonderful job. Is engaging people like myself, ensuring that we get out there and have those conversations. And I think there's the understanding now that because there's a movement in the ministry, I've just been asked to sit on a steering committee to drive that conversation and some action beyond just the 10th of September. So that is very encouraging. I think people like me, not just the story, but the advocacy, the help, the outreach, identifying things that can make a difference. I think those things are very, very important. If you reach one person, if you save one life, it is well worth the effort, So I'm kind of excited about the prospects moving forward after the week of recognition is completed, that there will be things happening, that there will be a difference made, and people would have a source to reach out to, whether it's the Ministry of Health, whether it's the Ministry of Social Services, and so on.
Yeah, I think that is important, keeping that particular issue front and center, front burner. And as we were mentioning before, not just when the occasion arises, but every month, every week. And the reason why I asked about the support network or support group is because technology has made it easy for us now in terms of we can have the group chats, we can, whether it's on Facebook, WhatsApp, or whatever the case might be. And somebody like yourself just posting something and saying, hey guys, did you check in with yourself today? How everybody doing? Whatever, and so on. And people just feel encouraged by that. And there are different personalities in a group chat. There are some people who's going to respond prompt. There's some people, again, they just read. Right, but doesn't mean to say that they're not engaged. They're not engaged.
Even just posting something on Facebook. I remember one morning I would just move to post a song, Barry Salmon song "Warriors Don't Cry."
Right.
Just just generally posting it and saying that you know, sometimes we have to toughen up. Sometimes the day doesn't start right, you know. And somebody I know very well reached out to me and said, "You have no idea what that song did to me."
Wow.
And he was going through a particular situation, and in fact, I went to his house and we sat down and had conversations about, you know, and was able to give some advice and how he was feeling at the time and the stress he was going through. So you never know what people might be going through, and you never know who might be going through something. You might think, and we saw it recently. I mean, the well-documented suicide of the young lawyer. She's young, she's pretty, she's a professional, you know, come from a well-to-do family, and even she did not escape, you know, the throes of mental.
It's no respect of persons.
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
exactly.
No
so you cannot say that person will and that person would not, you know, and you cannot say that, okay, that person has everything, so they have no reason to. It does not work like that. It's a mental illness. And once you get into that space where there's this tugging and pulling, and you cannot separate yourself from it, you cannot get out of it, then it becomes dangerous. And like I said, that is why it is important to speak, to have conversations. Speak to your kids, you know, find out what's going on with them, you know, what they're going through on a daily basis, you know, to avoid the bullying, whether it's online, whether it's in person in the schools and so on. But we have to continue to talk to each other instead of talking about each other.
I want to ask this question because you know there's a lot of taboos and stigmas and so on going around. We alluded to some of it before, right? So what do you believe are some of the more common misconceptions or stigmas surrounding suicidal survivors and so on? You know, what are the most common ones that you would have encountered?
The first one is that it is a selfish act, that you're not thinking about the people around you and what you're doing to them.
That is a betrayal.
Yeah. Okay. Again, it is not selfish because you are, and people think, I mean, there's this notion that a suicide attempt or suicide is a cry for help. You know, no, it's not. It's you want to end the pain. That's all you want to do. That's all you focus on is ending the pain. So there's nothing selfish about that. That you're going through something that nobody would understand, and you don't think that you could speak to anybody about it. So all you want to do is end that pain. The other thing is that you're trying to hurt yourself. No, you're not trying to hurt yourself. You know, I heard somebody, a professional, say it on TV the other day. People who commit suicide, they hurting. No, you're not, because you cut your risk. This is the method you think that would kill you the quickest. You know, it depends again on your threshold for pain or how tough you are mentally. You go for the hanging or ingesting something. You know, so you're not trying to hurt yourself. You're just trying to end that pain. And I think I want people to understand that more and more that the person who attempts or commits suicide is struggling inside mentally. It's having this monumental battle taking place inside.
So the method really and truly is the out.
Of course.
As compared to the pain that person is feeling inside.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's nothing selfish about it. There's no hurting, as it were. We are not trying to be spite, and I'm saying we because I'm included in this. We are not trying to be spiteful to anyone. What we are trying to do is just end that pain once and for all, because so much has come. It's like two big waves coming and you're caught in the middle and there's just no escaping. So the best way is to end it all. The stigma too is that you cannot live a normal life post-suicide attempt, that you're crazy, that you should be injected, that you should be taking medication. And I'm a living example that, like I said, I'm better off post-suicide than I was pre-suicide. And I opted out of medication. I was given some steroids and some antidepressants and so on, but I opted out of that and resorted to more natural means. You know, like I said, the exercise, looking at the things that I eat, things that could trigger stress levels and things that could make your body react in a certain way, too much sugars, too much salt, and so on. So yeah, there's this stigma that you will be sick for the rest of your life, or you will be crazy for the rest of your life, or people won't want to associate it. No, you could, like I said, I'm living proof of it. You can live a normal, fruitful, productive life post-suicide, post-mental health challenges, and that period of your life should not dictate or should not identify who you are as that person for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life, exactly. And you want to talk about, well, school just reopened. We know students also are affected. So how can we work with the schools and the students and stakeholders in education and so forth? You know, given your story, and what are your recommendations in terms of being able to cope with mental health challenges and issues and preventing suicide, and having suicidal thoughts and so forth, and having a kind of a support for students as well.
Yeah, the conversation, and that's a very good question. I mean, it's always painful when you hear a young person, a teenager, has committed suicide, and you could imagine that kind of torture, that mental torture that individual was going through. So at that young age, that the only thing you could think about is ending it all.
And funnily enough, you can imagine it even more than
so imagine that the peer pressure or the bullying, whatever. So I think the conversations are very important, and it appears as though coming out of the advocacy that there will be some outreach through the Ministry of Education. So people like myself and others will be given the opportunity to go have conversations, make presentations at schools to kids and so on. One of the things that I'm advocating is for teachers are great counselors. You mentioned the pastors and the churches, but teachers are fantastic counselors, and for that awareness to continue, that they can identify the people in the classrooms who might need help. There's this one kid who is by himself, very quiet. What is he or she going through at home? What is causing that withdrawal, that perceived state of depression? But people like myself will be going out to schools, will be going out to groups, community groups, and having those difficult conversations, and then the softer conversations, saying that what you're going through is okay. Let us talk about it. Let us identify the problems, and let us help you get out of that situation. But it's painful to hear, a teenager, whether it's peer pressure, whether it was exam pressure, whether the parents are putting too much pressure on them to succeed and so on. So that is something that would definitely, and I like the direction the Ministry of Health is going. I like the inclusiveness of the conversation, Ministry of Social Services, Ministry of Education. So I anticipate that something very positive will be happening in the next few weeks.
Right. And also even into the communities as well.
Of course.
Yes, people in the communities.
Walking through the churches. I know Bishop Harvey has already lent his support, and is reaching out to the other denominations to ensure that the churches are included also. I mean, I think growing up we knew that the church was a place of refuge. You could go in and speak to people. I'm not too pleased now that they seem to be on the high horse and talking down to people, and I think they need to get back, the priests and the pastors and the clergymen need to get back into the communities and do the one-on-one outreach during the week, not just expect us to come to you on Sundays to get a message.
Well, that's a whole conversation by
itself, of course. Exactly.
All right, and I really wish that we had more time. So, even as we wrap up, because there's so much more that we can discuss, but we can have a part 2.
Of course.
So, my final question to you is: what message of hope would you like to convey to those who are currently struggling with suicidal thoughts or feelings of despair, discouragement, and so forth?
The first thing I would use myself as an example and say, look at, if Dexter can go through what he did and have my dark moments, and I was, like I said, in effect dead for 14 hours, and for the next, even when I came to, for the next 4 days, I could have died, and then I needed another 7 days of recovery before I was let out of the hospital, and then about a month spending time at a relative's house, again recouping physically and mentally. And if I can go through that and survive everything thereafter, the ridicule, the depression, the drugs that the doctors recommended, the antidepressants and steroids and so on, and I survive all of that. Whatever it is that you're going through, you probably are stronger than I am, and you can survive it. Find that one person you can trust. Find that one person that you can talk to. And trust is very important, because you don't want your business going out there. You don't want people talking about you, and that sets you back even further, puts you in a greater state of depression. So find that one person you can trust. And then find the coping mechanisms. You have to do things that you enjoy doing to get you out of that state. You cannot continue to do the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result. Eliminate who you have to eliminate. If you go to the doctor and he said salt is not good for you, you will stop using salt immediately. So you have to make that determination. This person does not belong in my circle. This person does not care about me.
One word comes to mind is, in some situations, toxic.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Exactly. So
that person is just toxic for you, and you just have to let them go.
Think about it when at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you get to that point and you have to pick up that phone to call somebody, who's going to stay on the phone with you? So who's going to say or not answer the phone at all? I mean, I had a situation where somebody I knew, just in passing, just sent a random WhatsApp, hi, how are you doing? And we exchanged a couple of messages, and then the person called, and I thought it was a mistake. I thought the person had called in error, so I wasn't going to answer the phone. And eventually I did, And that led to a process of me actually lending my support to help possibly save the person's life, because that person was having, serious suicidal thoughts. And if I had not done what I had done or answered the phone, who knows what could have happened, So yeah, so those things, reach out to the people that you can trust and just develop this network. And everybody cannot and should not be everything to you. So if you like sports, you have your friends you talk to sports about. If you like, you have your work friends that you discuss work with. If you like soap operas, you have the friends that you discuss those things with. But you cannot find everything in everybody. So just develop those coping mechanisms. And like I said, whatever it is that you're going through, there is a tomorrow. Today will pass, and there will be a tomorrow. There will be a new chance. God has put all of us here for a reason, and if He's going to bring us to it, He's going to bring us through it. And He brought me to it. He has brought me through it, and I am living proof and example that whatever you are going through could never be as bad as severe as what I'm going through, and you can survive whatever it is that is stressing you or depressing you or makes you have those suicidal thoughts or making you feel that there is no hope. You will be able to survive it. I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to come and share. I mean, it's a wealth of information, and like I said before, you are an encouragement, you are motivation, inspiration to others, especially the people who may be entertaining certain thoughts and so forth. And I know that you are going to continue to do a lot of work on the ground. Who wasn't able to theme calling. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us again on our Health Matters program, where we discuss health matters, of course, because your health matters. I'm your host, Troy Gill, and today we are going to be speaking with psychiatrist and psychotherapist attached to Fit for Life Medical, Dr. Dirk Burkhardt, and we are going to be speaking about World Suicide Prevention Day, which is recognized on September 10th. And the theme for this year is creating hope through action. Dr. Burkhardt, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. It's indeed a pleasure, and I think this is your first time on the program, and I'm looking forward to having you again very soon. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, you were supposed to be in another part of the world, but you're in Grenada at this time.
I was in Germany for quite a while, but I came back about a week ago, yes.
Okay, excellent. So we're going to get straight into it. Thanks again for joining us. And so the topic that we want to get into is really and truly one of the main issues that is being presented with, especially when we talk about mental health, and that is suicide prevention. And the theme for this is very interesting. It's creating hope through action. And a professional like yourself, can you share with us what are your thoughts on this year's theme?
Well, the Creating Hope Through Action is a really wide program. It involves environmental issues, social issues, community issues, but here we are focusing on the humanitarian aspect, I believe. And suicide is a very common occurring reason for death. It's about, I think, the fifth, sixth most likely occurring reason for death in the United States, and happens very often. Men are more involved than women, actually. Middle-aged men are the group that is most affected by suicide. Yes, what can we do in terms of action or for being proactive? I think the most important thing is to be attentive to persons in your environment and see if there are any changes in terms of behavior. So maybe a person who was outspoken and, let's say, extroverted now might be calm, not be so willing to contact other people, might show social withdrawal, might start with neglect of hygiene, stopping to fulfill the expected roles. So if something like that is observed, in many cases people are just ignoring it, and then these unfortunate developments that can take place. So what people can do is to just then talk to the person and very openly ask, well, what is wrong with you? Of course, it has to be done in the right way. Can't be judgmental. Can't be has to be empathic, but that is the most important thing, so that the person gets some kind of a contact, because without contact, these kind of downward spiral just continues.
Wow. And I think to me that is a key thing, because sometimes people don't recognize that somebody might be having suicidal ideations. It just happens abruptly, however, the signs are there, but they're just not paying attention.
Yes, so we have to try to categorize suicide here. Sometimes it is really like an impulse, and that's when really nothing much can be done. So something bad happens, and the person just makes the decision, so I kill myself.
Okay.
So that is one group.
So that's one. Okay.
One group where it's very difficult to do something. In most cases, it's a slow development. So. Let's look about the reasons why suicidal ideation might occur. There might be some kind of a psychiatric underlying disease, like depression, like schizophrenia, like borderline personality, and others.
Okay.
In these cases, of course, again, the symptoms are clear, and then it is very important that the person gets professional help, because with these kind of symptoms and underlying diseases, you need professionals to deal with. Other cases, and they're again extremely unfortunate, it's when people basically are starting to balance their lives. So they're basically putting pros and cons, and then when the cons are just this, or more arguments for the cons, then they just make the decision to, okay, I kill myself. Just doesn't make more. And at that point in time, they feel actually relieved because they made the decision. And then they start organizing their life. Okay? So, and that's where now observation of people in the environment might come in, because they might realize that somebody suddenly starts to give away their possessions, like elderly people might be doing when they know, okay, I have only a few years to live, so I
start making a will and stuff.
Yeah. And then they start, for instance, paying their debts. They're organizing their lives, and then then it happens. But signs are there, like giving away stuff, organizing, what I mentioned, these kind of things. So they're basically, I think I would like to say that these are the main three groups for suicidal development.
Okay. Yeah, because in our society, I don't think people are really paying attention or able to identify the signs.
Yeah, there are two components. You're right. There's not enough knowledge about these kind of things. But on the other side, there's a high stigmatization as well. Right. So people who are suffering of these kind of symptoms, and particularly men, they tend not to seek help and not to go forward and talk to people. And that might be one of the reasons why middle-aged men who, they're expected to be the strong and active and persons, they're not really prepared to show weakness and seek help.
Especially in a Grenadian society.
It's worldwide. It's worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And, well, suicide prevention, it involves like early intervention. So what are some strategies or approaches can individuals and community use to identify and support individuals who are at risk of suicide in terms of like a holistic approach to?
Yes. So we mentioned already the family, the close environment, maybe
right.
the working place or school or university, wherever. But then, of course, the community as well as schools, universities, workplaces should have some kind of training to recognize these kind of things. And might, if it has communities, then should have some kind of entities who are trained to deal with these kind of things, so that they can then really be helpful and maybe professionally or half professionally decide which kind of group or which kind of suicide development it might be, and then say, okay, that needs professional help right away, psychiatrist, psychotherapist, that well, it's like an early stage, and so on, you know. So it's about community, organization, having the money and the will to have these kind of entities. Yes. So it's a political question here.
Right, right. And even in your personal capacity, how often do you come across or have to do interventions and so forth?
Now, yeah, as a psychiatrist,
Right.
Of course, typically the individuals are brought to me by family members. Hardly ever they would come, you know, from own motivation. And then, of course, the first thing is to see, well, at what stage of suicidality the person would be. So there are suicidal thoughts, which I think lots of people would have. This is kind of in, you know, what is normal. Like sometimes people just think because something bad happens in their life, somebody died.
So nobody is exempt
left
from
by
having
boyfriend, no.
suicidal thoughts, or
No.
right?
So suicidal thoughts is something to be attentive, but that happens very often and is not something that we would call an acute suicidality. Still needs, of course, attention and help and support. But then the next step would be that people seriously would think about, how do I kill myself? So like collecting tablets or buying some kind of a poison or a rope or you know, then it really would, then we would say it's an acute situation. The next stage would then be suicidal attempt. Now, from my point of view, the positive side is that only maybe 1 out of 30 or 40 suicidal attempts then really leads to suicide. And so we have to see that there are ways where somebody wants to kill him herself, which is almost 100% successful. But there are others where there's always a high likelihood that they are found in time. So we call that like seeking for help, crying for help. Still very dangerous, but these are, of course, situations where acute help is needed, and this kind of acute help is cannot typically be provided in an outpatient situation. So that means, in most cases, psychiatric hospital.
Okay, and well, these families who would have their family members brought in and so forth. How long does the process take in terms of the intervention, the therapy, and so, you know the terms, I'm speaking layman's terms, with these individuals, and in most cases, is it people who are having suicidal thoughts or would have attempted suicide?
Okay, if somebody with suicidal thoughts would be coming, the first assessment would be, is there an underlying disease? In many cases there is a development of either reactive depression, meaning a depression that occurs because of some kind of a life event which is a burden or affecting somebody emotionally very, very severe. Then it would have to be seen if medical treatment with antidepressants is suitable or makes sense, but always together with some kind of psychotherapy, counseling, cognitive therapy, mindfulness. But there are lots of therapies which are possible. Not so many are available in Grenada. That's the problem, of course.
Okay.
And then if that is at early stages, and if there's a severe stage with acute suicidality, I told you already, that's then psychiatric hospital. There's no way around. Yeah.
Okay. And in this case, and the reason why I ask this question is because, family support is critical. Having that, and not just family, but having a support network of family and friends and so forth, who is able to, be like a pillar of strength during that particular time. So, what advice would you offer to families in terms of creating that sort of a support or an environment for their loved ones who is facing or has mental issues or mental challenges?
Yeah, generally I would think that every family has that kind of ability to support, because once people are seeing how people are developing, so if a family of yours suddenly is not getting up in the morning, not motivated to do anything, you recognize that. So any kind of a functioning family should be able to deal with that. In dysfunctional families, of course, we have a completely different situation.
Right.
Then the dysfunctional family, of course, is also possibly the cause for the depressive or suicidal development in that person.
Wow, that is deep, because sometimes the environment could be toxic, or the people that is within your circle could also be toxic.
Absolutely.
For you as well. You mentioned something with regards to family members, persons being recommended, or you have family members who bring their loved ones or their family members and so forth, and even more so for men in particular seeking help. What do you think is the main deterrent for men, as you mentioned, even at category middle-aged men, not necessarily seeking out help when they believe that they may have depression or have mental health issues and so forth?
It's a problem that lies in our society with the expected roles of men, as mentioned before, to be the strong ones who are organizing life and are above everything. They are the ones where people are coming for help. They're not seeking help. So that does have to do with the image that men have in that society. Now, how can you change that? That's very difficult. So it's definitely not something that can be done very, very fast. That is, social environment, social political development over.
So I guess that goes back to what you were saying. Infiltrating the community.
Definitely, what we are talking here might be helping, but it's would be a constant effort to develop the society in that direction, that men also can be weak. You see, it goes even further. Men typically see doctors' help even for physical diseases, in many cases too late, because they just don't want to go to the doctor and be the weak one, and then maybe have to deal with the situation where they are sick. So they come to see the doctor in many cases, I wouldn't say in many cases, but there are lots of cases where they come to the doctor too late to really get help for their physical disease, be it cancer or whatnot. So when the first symptoms, when they would have reached out to see a doctor, they could have most likely be safe. Women are much better in that perspective. They are open, they're more social, they're talking about their problems,
Right.
they're looking for help. So that is the reason why middle-aged men, from a suicidal aspect, but not only from a psychic, but also from a physical aspect, are more likely to be damaged in their health situation.
Mm-hmm. Because especially considering that they are the category that is most at risk, men in particular, in terms of the ratio as compared to women. And so to me, this is very serious, considering that males are the one who, in most cases, well, I had a conversation.
Well, it's about
with,
two-thirds, one-third, male, two-thirds, women, one-third.
yeah, because I've even heard the argument that there are certain studies that reveal that women that it's almost on the same rate. It's just that men are more successful than women.
In what perspective?
With regards to the act, in terms of suicide. So for women.
Yeah, it's not surprising
Yeah,
because for women it's most likely a
for
suicide.
men.
Okay, now if we want to go to the statistics, men tend to use guns or.
It's a more effective means.
Well, if you want to say so, yes. Where
Right.
the women more likely are using poison. Mm-hmm. And of course, in poison, you get symptoms. There's a good chance that somebody sees.
Right, and they're taken to the hospital.
And then taken to the hospital
right.
and saved. So, and then, as I told you, women are searching and looking for help. So they are maybe using the suicidal attempt as a cry for help more.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
Well, that's a bit speculation, but.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, but that is very interesting, and so I want to ask this question. Now, as we know, there's a stigma surrounding mental health, and there's a category of people. Because I was speaking to a gentleman just a while ago, and who is a survivor, and. In his case, people never expected him to be one to make an attempt at suicide, and so we put people in a certain bracket or certain category as to who might, be having suicidal ideations and so forth. So in his case, he was a professional. He had a good job. He was a popular figure and so on. So nobody really expected him to be having suicidal ideations, or even to attempt suicide, as a matter of fact. So why is it important for us to break that stigma with regards to who do we categorize as these people who are most likely to attempt or having suicidal ideations as compared to another category of people, if you understand where I'm coming from?
I'm not sure if that is really possible, to really identify everybody who might then attempt to kill him herself. And there will be always cases like the case that you mentioned, where nobody recognized, and so the only person who could have done something in this case is the person himself. He could have looked for help. The question is, why didn't he do that? Didn't he do that because he was so successful, because he couldn't show any kind of weakness? I don't know that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe, I don't know what other reasons might be in the background. But there will be always individuals who will not be detected as potentially suicidal for whatever reasons. But you're right. If it wasn't that stigmatized in society, then maybe he would have looked for help. So he is the only one who could have changed the situation.
Right, because he even indicated that at this point right now, he is, every now and again, he was checking with a therapist or counselor, somebody in your field and so forth. And to me, he equated it to like certain checks that you would do with regards to your health. So you check your blood sugar, you check your pressure, and so on. And as somebody in your experience in your field, how important is that in terms of checking in with somebody with regards to your mental health? Because you do it with your physical health.
Yes, but there's a big difference.
Okay.
With the physical health, you can draw blood, you can do imaging, X-ray, whatever.
Right.
And
I see where you're going.
the point is, in terms of psychic situation, you're talking to the person. Now, and the only thing you can do is really to ask questions and to openly talk about these kind of things. But if the person doesn't answer honestly and is basically not opening or presenting a different picture of him herself, then you don't have a chance. See where I'm coming from?
Right.
You can talk, but there is no objective way to measure suicidality, like you could measure electrolytes in the blood or something like that.
Right.
That's not a very good example, but just.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
So it's just, but that's where the relatives come in, because they know the person. As a professional, the person comes to you, you don't know the person. A psychotherapist knows the person, so they would be recognizing something is changing. But if somebody comes to you to see you in, let's say, half an hour, and the person is not open and honest, you might get some kind of an idea or a feeling. But the point is, you cannot treat anybody against his or her will. You cannot force somebody to take medication or to talk. So if there's not a pressure of suffering or a seek for help, then,
or that willingness to be open and honest and to share.
What can you do?
Right.
From a legal point of view, there's only treatment against the volition of somebody possible if there is an acute danger for self or for harming oneself or harming others. And that, then somebody, you can only say, well, this person is harming, has self-harm tendencies if there is some kind of a trial to kill oneself. Or if somebody, and harming others is maybe harming others. So something has to have happened, really. Otherwise, there is no way to treat anybody against their own volition.
Okay. So I want to ask this question. For somebody who has made a suicide attempt and is seeking professional help, what is the duration for that individual? In your case, they're coming to you for intervention. So what kind of paint a picture for us as to what the schedule is like and how long would that person would need intervention for? I'm guessing it's based on certain factors.
It's very, very different.
Right.
Sometimes it's just some kind of acute situation in family or or workplace. Once that is addressed and solved, problem is solved. If there's an underlying psychiatric disease, completely different situation, then medical treatment and psychotherapy is necessary. Okay. Sometimes there is a chronic suicidality. The patients are always suicidal. They need basically help with a psychotherapist for a very long time. So it really depends on what the underlying cause is.
And in extreme cases like that, as you mentioned, somebody who is always entertaining suicidal thoughts, how can families really come in? What role can they play? Is it that they keep them locked in a room or they're under constant observation?
That's illegal. That's illegal. You cannot do that.
Right. Because you mentioned that's like an extreme case.
Well, in an acute situation, hospitalization.
Okay.
Other than that, of course, observing. Is the person collecting, for instance, tablets? Talking, of course, is extremely important there. But at the end of the day, we have to face reality. If somebody wants to kill him or herself, sooner or later the person will be successful. So, there is no way to be absolutely sure that that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad, but that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we and that is in the extreme case for somebody who they may not have attempted, but they have suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideations, and they come to seek the counselor for help. At what point do you recognize, okay, this person can be released? Because, or is it, what sort of recommendations are made? So, for instance, it might be a situation with the family or with the home or on their job or with a friend. As a gentleman was mentioning before, he was in a very toxic relationship. And so one of the decisions he had to make was to kind of drop off that, cut ties with certain individuals and so forth. So what are the recommendations?
Well, what I would be doing if somebody has suicidal ideations but is not really acute suicidal, I typically make a contract with the person. I say, listen, okay, that's the situation. I'm very, very concerned about your situation. You don't want to go to the hospital, so let's. There's no way to admit you against your will. So let's make a contract. And the contract would be, okay, here's my telephone number, and you have to promise me, and that is contract. That means you are bound to it, to call me at any time before you do anything. And you see, the idea is that in some kind of a relationship, you do not want to disappoint the other person. So
right.
Then might help to not really commit suicide. But if the person really wants to do it, they wouldn't care about person's relationship. So that's why I said, what can you do? Yes, that's what can you do. But you would always have to be aware that you might not be successful in preventing it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Even as we wrap up the program, I want to ask you this question because in somebody in your professional capacity as a psychiatrist and psychotherapist, I know they want to bring the whole issue of suicide, especially the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Development, Ministry of Education as well. They want to bring that front and center, because we just recently we had a spike in suicides, and it was quite unfortunate even among the female population. So in your professional capacity, how do you intend to, or how do you see yourself working probably with government and other stakeholders and so on in terms of really tackling this issue and even some of the recommendations and so forth, given your experience and so forth, intervention, counseling, therapy and so forth?
Well, you see, one of the big problems that you mentioned is that if one suicide happens, it has typically some kind of an effect that others who are in similar situations then more easily make the decision to kill themselves. So it's not unusual that one suicide then creates a number of other suicides. So that explains the spike.
Okay.
The other thing, of course, is, and looking in schools, like harassment has to be tackled.
Right.
And I'm not so sure that has been done consequently in schools and
dealing with bullying and
bullying
so on.
And but it happens in the working environment as well. So and if somebody is bullied, typically the person doesn't have the strength to go forward and mention it and complain. Mm-hmm. So that's in schools. It's the teachers, the directors, who would have to have some kind of programs and support and counseling, either to firstly to define it and then to help and support. I think bullying is a very important point here, and that and bullying, harassment, and that leads to quite a number of suicides in school children and even in the working environment. Yes. And in terms of politics, yes, I think there should be entities, counseling centers, whatever, but also it's very important to try to attack the stigma, and that means constantly working on education in that perspective. But I don't see much in Grenada, and even worldwide, it's I think not well done and well brought forward.
So there needs to be certain structures, certain things implemented. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. So even as we wrap up, what is your message to people out there, even people who may be listening to the program and they may be entertaining certain thoughts and so on? What would you say to these individuals? You know, as you mentioned, there are different categories, there are different stages and so forth, which is also important. But given your experience and so forth, to somebody who is listening and might be entertaining certain thoughts, what would you say to these individuals?
Well, for the persons who are depressed or have thoughts of killing themselves, seek help. Just talk to your family, talk to your friends, and maybe try to find a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist. Come and seek help. And for persons, generally, I would say, be attentive to the individuals around you. And if you realize any kind of changes, like, as I mentioned, like social behavior, social withdrawal, lack of hygiene maybe, if you recognize they are not fulfilling their expected roles, talk to them. And so talk to them. Just empathic, not judgmental, and often really that already helps. And but once you are in some kind of conversation, then it's easy to say, well, listen, come, let's go and seek some professional help or something like that. I think that's the main two recommendations I would make here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Burkhardt.
Thank
Appreciate you coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
And I believe that this is going to be part one, because I mean, there's so much more that we can get into. I mean, there's so much more, but time does not permit sometimes and so forth. So really appreciate you taking the time out to come and share on our Health Matters program, and of course on the theme creating hope through action. The day in question, I know that the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and Social Development, they are going to be rolling out several initiatives. So not just on the day, because I think it's on Sunday, but also throughout the week there are going to be activities and so forth to kind of keep it front and center. Because I think that the whole thing is not just like a knee-jerk reaction, but it's about every month, every week, not just when there's a spike in suicides and so forth, but to keep it front and center. So people who might be having or entertaining certain thoughts, they can seek help and they can get help and so forth. So really appreciate it. That was mental health and wellness advocate who is also a suicide attempt survivor, Dexter Mitchell, and psychiatrist and psychotherapist attached to Fit for Life Medical Services, Dr. Dirk Burkhardt, on World Suicide Day, recognized on September 10th. Health matters because your health matters. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. See you again next time.